Real estate farming is the practice of targeting a specific geographic area, both with marketing efforts and with outreach, in order to become the go-to agent for that specific area. This is a proven strategy, tried and true, in order to both generate leads and become well known in that specific area. But like everything else, you have to have the proper approach in order to be successful. In today's video, I'm sharing the top 5 real estate farming tips in order to dominate your local market. And before we dive into those, my very first piece of advice is, budget-wise, if you can't commit to a farm for a minimum of a year, preferably 2 years, then you want to save up a little bit more until you can make that time commitment. Farming can be very, very beneficial, but it is a long-term play and it costs a lot of money up front to get yourself established. You can't just send, a postcard twice a year to a neighborhood and expect to get any business. So you want to have your budget in play and ready to go to make that long-term commitment. Again, minimum of 1 year, preferably 2 years. Tip number 1 is choosing the right area to farm. And this is so important because you not only want to make sure that the area you select to farm is in line with who your target market is and who you ultimately want to work with, but when it comes to farming, you also have to make sure that neighborhood has an appropriate turnover rate to make your farming efforts worth it. A lot of times agents will select the neighborhood that they live in, and as long as the data lines up with the turnover that you need in order to be successful, that's a great place to start. You obviously already know that neighborhood, and I assume you like it if you're living there. But as far as looking into a neighborhood to determine whether or not you're going to do some farming there, you want to look at the home values, you want to look at median days on the market, and you've got to determine what that turnover rate is so that you can then calculate whether or not the cost of your farming is going to be worth it long term. If there aren't enough homes turning over in the neighborhood, that is not one that you want to farm. Tip number 2 is building a strong brand. When you're going to be farming, you need to have some type of branding in place. It could be your logo, your website, the marketing message, your value proposition. All of those things need to be determined up front, because when you start a farm, you need to be sending that consistent message to whoever you're farming to. It needs to resonate with them, it needs to bring them value, and you've got to have the consistency so that they start to remember you as the go-to agent in the neighborhood. If you're sending a bunch of different postcards once a month, every month, and they're all over the place with the messaging and how they look, they're not going to make that connection that you're the agent that's mailing to them once a month, twice a month, whatever you decide to do. Get your brand on point before you start doing any type of mailing. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about growing your real estate business without ever making a cold call, be sure to hit that subscribe button and tap that bell for notifications so that you'll never miss a video. Tip number 3 is creating your marketing plan. And this all needs to be done before you start the farm. So you've got your neighborhood selected, you've got your branding in place, and now you're gonna look at your marketing plan. And first up for that is going to be, what type of marketing are you going to be doing? Of course, we're talking about farming today, so I think we can check it off the list. Something is going to be once a month via direct mail. That's a must and a minimum for a year. But there's other ways that you can supplement your farm. You could start a digital farm to tie in with your direct mail farming. You could start a website that has all the information you can possibly gather and post about the neighborhood. You could also host community events. You could sponsor, say, a paper shred or sponsor a dumpster for the neighborhood. There's a lot of different ways that you can supplement direct mail to tie in and show the neighbors in whatever community you select that you are their go-to agent and you are there not just for market information, but to support the community as well. And all of that should be mapped out before you start mailing. Tip number 4 is leverage technology. And I touched on it just briefly in tip number 3. You could also start a website for the neighborhood where you can share all of your local knowledge. But in addition to that, you can use technology to start a Facebook group for the neighborhood. You could also have all of your listings showcased either in your Facebook group, your website, or both. And probably my favorite one is you can target the people that live within the neighborhood. So they would be getting your direct mail piece once a month, and then you could pop up on their feed on social. And what that starts to do is build this perception that they are seeing you anywhere and everywhere. And that's exactly what you want. You don't want them to just get a piece of mail once a month. That's a starting point, and that's a great place to, get your feet wet. But you've got to expand from there because you need that effect of showing up anywhere and everywhere that they are, and technology is a great way to do that. Tip number 5 is establish yourself as the local expert. Farming is a great way to get that local notoriety and be known as the go-to agent. But to speed up your farming efforts, you want to also be a face in the community. So this goes back to attending community events, volunteering in the community. You could even have your own community event, maybe like a spring cleanup or something similar. Just volunteer within the community and be out there and be showing your face to your neighbors and the people that you are targeting via direct mail. The other way to become known as the local expert in the neighborhood and really establish yourself is through blog posts, videos, that community website we talked about, and social media. You want to eat, sleep, and breathe the community that you're farming in. Just sending a piece of mail once a month really isn't going to do it. You might have some success, but you can really amp up the return on your investment by supplementing what you're doing in addition to that monthly mailer. Real estate farming takes time, effort, and a financial commitment, but it can be an incredibly powerful way to establish yourself as the local expert in the neighborhood of your choice. Follow these 5 real estate farming tips and you'll be well on your way to dominating your local market. If you got some value from today's video, please consider giving me a like or dropping me a comment below. I love hearing from you. And until I see you on the next one, take care.